Alright, one of the ways to do that is if we select our shape here, we can kind of put a cut line in here, and you can precisely do it with the pen tool. And let's do that over here first on the carbon fiber component. So we have our carbon fiber component here, and we can just go ahead and copy paste a new part and just fill that with whatever dark color. Now let's take that, and you can use this knife tool and just put a little cut like that in there. And now take the top part, which is going to be your reflection, make that white, and drag that up, snap it in place, move it on the top, get rid of the transparency, and you can start to see what a reflection does here. And if you want, you can also offset this. So before we do that, let's go ahead and offset -1 mil. Let's use the new one, and we'll cut that with the knife. And we'll just fill that with white, and we'll drag that up here. There you go, you can start to see there's like a little reflection edge. And if you want to make this a little bit more realistic, you can also make this a gradient and add a little bit of a darker edge. So you can darken this top side and just hit that with the white. So it kind of fades off. So there, so we have that reflection on that part. Now let's go ahead and copy and paste this. Let's do that down here as well. So let's go with that knife tool, and let's offset this -0.5 millimeters, just a tad. And we'll grab the inside, keep the inside, and kind of like the knife tool because it's almost a little bit more of a random effect. I'm just going to kind of come down, and whatever you have selected kind of cuts through. I'm not really liking that too much. There, let's see what this. Try one more time. Alright, let's see what that gives us. Let's keep those and delete the rest. Make that white. And transparency, there we go. And let's get rid of the black stroke, just because your reflection probably won't have a stroke to it. And there you go, you have a little reflection. Part. Okay. Now let's add a little highlight here as well. So let's copy paste that and get rid of all that. Let's give it a brush stroke. There we go. Let's tell it 0.25, and let's cut it out. So cut here, there, and right there. And this I want to add a black to it. And remember, black, let's hit it with the multiply in about 50%. And I probably want to thicken that up a tad. And nudge it up just a bit. Alright. Let's give a little bit of a shadow here, and then this highlight running right through there. And these we can move on top as well, so those are cut. So cut through. Alright, and let's add a highlight to this as well. Let's make that 0.15. Alright, so start to get our highlights in here. These are just a little bit too bright. Don't have to be that super bright. And then these shapes here are definitely way too bright. There we go, it's a little better. Okay, so now that we have that in place, we're off to a pretty good start. Now let's finish up our lacing system here. So I'm going to show the sketch. I'm going to move it on top just so I can kind of see where my lines are. And I'm going to create my new lines using that brush that we already started using. So if you select this, now you've activated that with all of its properties. I'm going to go ahead and create a hidden ghillie here. And I'm going to copy that over. Just move some of these lines around. And I'll end up having three laces down here. And then one final lace here. Okay. Let's reposition those. Alright, and once you have those, lock that. Once you have these where you want them, you can go ahead and expand those. And remember, they're faded because we have our drawing layer on top. So don't worry, they are, if you hide it, you know, they are still dark. So we can hide our, well, let's just finish off this lace here, since this is pretty important to the drawing. So go ahead and start this one. Start that there, and then you end up having a twist at the end there. And we can select our rectangle with rounded corners, and let's add the lace tip right there and reduce the stroke to just 1 point. Rotate that. There we go. Got our lace hanging there. Okay, so grab your laces and let's hide our sketch now underneath. Hide it. And we will expand those forms. And remember we had that was as yellow here. But what I'm going to do is select this and that centerpiece and really commit to what color I want these laces to be. So most likely we'll go with some standard red, or maybe black laces will look a little better, just to give us some contrast with the red upper material. So we'll go with a black lace, and we can do a red. Let's do a red tip here. And I'm going to change the points down to 0.5. Move that to the back. There we go. You want to try to get this to make it look like it's laying on the ground. And you'll see once we put the shadow in here, we'll add a nice little shadow effect for the lace, and it'll really give it some dimension. We'll add some shadows a little bit later on as well. So we have our laces now. Unfortunately, they're on top. We want to bring those back. Just these ones here, because those are underneath this upper material, but on top of the tongue. So we'll select the tongue as well. Let's move that all to the back. And now you can see how the shape is still there, but it's underneath this upper layer. And the same way we did, if you look closely here, let's go ahead and add a red outline to those. That'll look pretty cool. Like a red outline to a black lace. And these lines on top, let's change those to, say, like a gray color. Give those rounded ends. Okay. So you kind of see that here's our top lace here. And right now we have a translucent effect. Probably don't want that because I haven't seen any translucent laces to date. So let's grab all these laces and just get rid of the transparency. Okay, we'll worry about this big one later, since that actually has a little more complex twisting going on. I wanted to give it some twisted effect just to add some realism to it. So we'll go ahead with these guys and we'll get these outer edges created. So another way to execute that is if you offset minus 0.5 millimeters, approximately those shapes there, and then just go ahead and grab a couple of these and run them off, and run those off. That way when you divide this, you'll just get the trim edge. And we'll want to divide these all individually, because you don't want to interfere with these pieces that we're extending and accidentally cut through all of this. It'll get really messy. So we'll just stick with cutting these individually. And I'm just going to extend these as well, only because you want to divide it from the bottom too, so you can have two sides of that. So let's go ahead and start with this one. We ungroup that, divide, and we'll want to save one. We'll want to save. Get rid of that. I want to save those two pieces. the eyedropper tool, and this will go to black as it is. And let's move this to the back so we keep hitting that. So again, let's divide, ungroup, and just get rid of these two pieces. And those edges we can hit it with the red. Start to see how that's forming. Divide, divide, ungroup, ungroup, and select those and get rid of them. And select those eyedropper red. Alright. So there we've given our laces a little bit more details with the red trim. And this lace looks like it's a little too high, so I'm just going to lock those and grab lock that, grab these points, just drag them down a little bit. Still looked a little too high. Okay. And there also, if you want to go into your effects, you can go, if we add a gradient to this, under your effects, if you texture, you can work with a bunch of these texturizer effects and really start to see, you know, if you can do sandstone effects, and there's all kinds of effects in here. And if you play with your scaling, and how much of a relief you want, you can really get it to, well, this didn't turn out that good. We'll look into the textures a little bit later. So let's finish up this last lace here. And with this last lace, I wanted this lace to look like it's actually curving here, so, and twisting. And the way to do that is I'm just going to grab this and create this twisted line right there. And then again, when it gets down here, I want this to twist right around here as well. So just going to create a line, get that to kind of twist right there. So we can go ahead and expand that, divide it, ungroup it, and let's add the gradient to it right now. So this gradient's going to be a little different. It's going to require the light and dark. And this one here will get the light and dark as well. And this one looks pretty good. Let's offset this 0.5. And this I'm going to take this and extend it off right there. Just like that. And we will divide those. Let's get this right off here as well. And divide, ungroup, and let's keep the center. Let's keep the center pieces, and we'll hit this with the red. And we'll perform the same effect here and here. We'll offset, ungroup, and to extend these guys. You can hear me clicking, like I just, I use these hotkeys so often. It's just something that that's natural now. I've used it so much. And it's definitely worth, if you can learn to use those, it definitely helps your process go a lot smoother and quicker, rather than relying to come over to the window, the table on the left there. So that's going to run off like that. Alright, there you go. There, this is twisting, and it's twisting again here. And we're good. Let's just delete some of these extra shapes here. Decide I don't really want those in there. Alright. Okay, so there, we're starting to shape up. Do a couple little adjustments to some of these lines here. We'll just add a little bit of a shadow right there. Alright, let's finish up finish up this. Since these look a little weird with such contrasted color, we'll want to ungroup these and just select these shapes here, and we'll copy paste in front and give that this kind of translucent effect. And I'm going to get rid of the stroke. That'll give it a look like that's the actual plastic being cut in there. And if we see if we offset this, and we can kind of move that over. If this becomes our red, that becomes our red material, and then you have a hole. That starts to look a little bit more believable. Just the fact that you're kind of hitting this. Let me do this. It's minus 0.25 millimeters. There we go. Let's do this for all of these at the same time. So we'll make that red, offset, and we shall just drag these all at one time so we're consistent. There we go. Now just so we do that, and those will go to black with no outline. And right here, let's just tweak that. And what you're probably going to see here is you're going to see the other edge of this. Let's get rid of that. Let's take this and offset that. And you're most likely going to see something to that effect occurring through that thickness. And if we select those two and divide, and then combine those two back together, what you're going to see is this piece starts to have a little bit of a thickness associated to it. Then we can go here, offset this, move it over, and reposition some of those lines. Alright. So there, that starts to look a little more realistic. And just drop this down. A bit less transparency. There we go. There's your holes in your TPU. Okay, so now that we're almost finished, we want to add a little bit. Let's go ahead and add a background here. Slide those over. And I'm just going to make a rectangle shape here, and let's do this on a new layer. Let's drag that down here and just call this background, and drag our object to that layer. Let's get rid of the stroke and change the gradient. Since our object that we're rendered is red, we're probably going to want to change the color of that. And I'm going to go with something a little more cooler in color. Just since I don't want it to be that dark, and we'll just change the gradient. I'm holding shift down with the gradient tool, And just let's get this looking a little less. We can really isolate that highlight and move it kind of wherever we want. So I'm just going to put that. I want to get this bottom of the plate, get a little bit of white there. So this line, I want to just get some of that to kind of pop through, almost like a backlighting. And what we can do here is let's create another layer. And let's call this reflection. And let us lock the background and select our lines here that we've already created. Now if you copy and paste right on top, I'll group that with Apple G, and then I want to reflect this, so Apple 3 is what I have set for reflect, and let's go horizontal, so this flips it up along the horizontal line, and we have preview visible here. We just hit OK, and then holding down Shift, we can kind of drag this down and get this to kind of reflect into the surface of this glass right here. And holding down Shift gives you a little bit more control over the angle. And what we're going to do is move all these lines to our reflection layer up here in the corner, and that'll kind of put it down to the back. Now one of the things that looks a little weird is our lace. So I'm just going to lock our top layer and grab our lace from this layer here with the selection tool. Let's ungroup all that. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab this lace and just kind of bring this down. There we go. Alright, so now let's grab this object here and this reflection. Let us just really lighten this thing up. You can kind of see it's still there, but it's kind of reflected into this glass surface here. Let's go a little bit less contrast. Alright, and on top of this reflection, let's select this shape. We'll just group it together. And let's go ahead and drag this guy off. Let's see. Alright, here it is. Now we can just make this, I'm just going to give it like a little shadow. So I have a reflection in the surface, and now a shadow effect. And you can tweak this. And depending on how much of a contrast you like, you can get that pretty dark if you like. There we go, kind of like that. Maybe that's pretty cool right there. Get a little bit bigger. So you see this is underneath my object, it's on the ground, and I'm reflecting the cleat into the ground surface. Giving a little bit of backlight right there. So let's add another shadow here onto our material here. So I'm going to go ahead and just draw in, kind of taking into consideration how this lace is going to kind of, it might touch right about here. So let's get as close to that. There we go. It's going to kind of run up here, back down, right here. It's going to hit there. It's just going to roll under. And for you to see this a little bit better, let's make this one point, and let's put this on top so you can actually see what we're doing. So right there, we're just going to follow the contours of this shape, and I'm going to add in a couple more points to the surface. Alright, now I'm going to offset this 2 millimeters. Let's go with offset of 3.5 millimeters. There we go. And I'm going to cut there and there and get rid of these. Right now it's a compound path. Release it, selection tool, and delete those guys. And what I'm going to do here is just connect these together. Alright, and let's fill it with black, and it'll be multiplied. And depending on how strong of a shadow you want to actually have, what I'm going to do is, since that's under my lace, I'm going to grab my lace and all the little sections of it, okay? And I'm going to bring the front, so object, arrange, bring the front. And that'll put it on top of that shadow I just created. And there you go, you start to see it kind of following that contour. Alright, let's take this here and this piece, and we shall offset that 1 millimeter. And paste. So we'll take this and we'll shift that down. We'll bring that to the front, and we'll copy paste that, select those two, divide, ungroup, and we want to salvage that and that, delete the rest. If we unite these together, expand them, and select that, we'll select that same multiply and transparency. We might want to just increase that one just a bit right in there. Okay, and let's offset these minus 0.25 millimeters. That'll go inside, and grab them and give it a white highlight. This we can go 0.05. And here you can just cut, and you want to remember to eliminate the fill that these presently have. Just get rid of it. And we'll cut this one here. And same goes for the lining. Let's cut that off. And right here, I don't want these to be disconnected. I want that highlight to run right across. So I'm just going to grab that and find the end point and connect them together. And select here. There we go, we have a nice little highlight here. You have your lace, you have your reflections, shadows, and we're almost finished. So let's go ahead and grab our lining material, and we want to give this a texture. So I'm going to copy, paste in front. I'm going to no fill the stroke, and let's fill the color with dark black, 100% opacity. And you're going to have to rasterize this image first. Transparent, let's keep it at 300 ppi. If you don't do transparent, it's going to leave a white background in this area here. So we don't want that, we want it to be transparent. So you can see all this nice background in our image. So once you've rasterized your image, under Effect, if you go down to Sketch and Halftone Pattern, you can also do textures in here with the texturizer. But we're just going to use Sketch and Halftone Pattern. And right in here, if you zoom in 300%, you can kind of see what's happening, and you can play with the size and the amount of contrast you actually want to happen. So I'm going to keep a little bit of a larger shape here, and let's hit OK. So there you have a larger shape. Now it's white. We don't want white, so we want the white to go away and keep all of our dark effect with those shapes there. So if you hit multiply, the white will go away and the dark will be you'll just be able to see the dark, and that's kind of a nice little effect. And if you don't like how contrasty is, you could just play with your transparency and tone that down to however you want. So I'm going to do this for the laces now, and what you have to remember is these shapes are underneath, so you don't want to select all of your laces at the same time, or else it'll bring these over top of your perforated synthetic. So you'll want to create these at one time and then these overlay pieces a second time. So you have to do this process twice just to maintain the layering that you already have here. You don't want to run into problems. So we'll leave this one alone. We'll copy, paste, and we can actually unite all of these. And let's go ahead and rasterize. Already settings are good. And That's under Effect, we'll Sketch, and then Halftone. I'm just going to select the same halftone pattern, but I'm going to make these a little tighter. There we go. Hit OK. Now you can see your color halftone. Now I want that to show through. There we go. It's getting a little dark here, so we'll go ahead and just lighten that up a tad. So about 60%. Okay, so we'll go ahead and do the same for these shapes here. Okay, so copy, paste in front, get rid of our stroke. Let's fill with black. We'll make this a rasterized image. Okay. And Effect, Sketch, Halftone Pattern. And we'll use the same one that we just created for the previous laces. And we'll hit it with the same effect. 60%. Alright, so there you go. So we'll zoom out. And now we've just added textures to our lining, tongue lining, and a little bit of texture to our laces. So there you go. You can kind of see that in here. So it's subtle, but it works out. Alright, so that pretty much ends our demo. And you have a soccer boot, as it's called in the European Soccer League, and showing you carbon fiber, perforated synthetic, some clear plastic overlay, welded overlay, seams, die cut holes, and then our plate with clear cleats where you actually can see through them, and then how to add a reflection, shadow, and some highlights. So that's the video. Thanks for watching.